when you read, all right, besides thinking about the gist and besides asking questions, another way to think and to annotate your thinking is by thinking about character motivation. So what is character motivation? Now, you know this when we did realistic fiction, because basically what I said to you is to make your stories better and to have them have more tension is by adding a character motivation. So when we talk about character motivation, basically it's reasons why the characters speak and act like he or she does. All right? So as humans, sometimes we have motives, we have reasons why we say the things we do. You know? So let's say, for example, my husband, he comes home from work and he sits on the couch and he opens up a big old bag of chips. And there I am sweating and the kids are all running around and I'm cooking dinner and I'm trying to clean the house. Not that my husband would ever do this because I would seriously beat him. So I go into the TV room and I start yelling at him. So why am I speaking like that? And then I start hitting him. Not that I would ever hit him. But so what is my motive? Basically, it's out of anger. Okay? So we all have, as humans, we all have reasons why we say and do things. Write this down. Yes. Hold on to it. All right? So motivation is what makes the characters behave the way they do. So when I hit him and when I yelled at him and called him a jerk and a loser, which I would never do, the reason why I did it, it's because of all these other things that he did or really did not do. Okay?
What does he work in?
Oh, he's an athletic trainer. So all he does all day is drive around on a golf cart. All right? So a character's motivation is what makes him or her. So believe it or not, people pay a lot of money, and you can listen to this, Elena. People pay a lot of money to doctors to get them to tell them what their motivation is. So sometimes people go to a psychologist and they sit there and they talk about all the details of their life and every time my kid he does something I'm yelling at him and I feel so bad, and so the psychologist will look at details from the person's life and say, I know what your motivation is. Maybe it's really jealousy. Maybe you're jealous because, when you were younger, you didn't have the life that your kids have, and that's why you're taking all your anger out on them, because of jealousy. So people pay a lot of money for doctors, for psychologists and psychiatrists to figure out their motives. All right? But if we understand a character's motive or a person's motive, it helps us to understand that person a little better. So, for example, if you understand why I said that to my husband or why I hit him, did those actions, you kind of get me as a little bit better of a person. Probably think I'm a psycho. Okay? When you know the reasons for a character's actions, thoughts, or feelings, that's when you understand his or her motivation. Okay? So we had a whole list of motivations, and we put words, and this list is not completed. I'm going to photocopy another list I have for you. But we talked about people do things sometimes for power. So look at your list that we wrote when you're done copying this down. Money, love, to fit in. They do it for jealousy. They do it for revenge. Sometimes people do things out of anger. How about social status? What do I mean by social status?
Popularity?
Yeah, kind of like, you don't want to lose your status. Popularity people do things for. So what I'll do is, instead of writing this all down, I'm going to pull up the list in a minute and show you the list that I compiled. And we can add to this list. I don't have every single motivation. Now, every action, every time a person does something or says something, does it have a motivation?
Yes.
No.
No.
I mean, I might just, I don't know, maybe I'm just sitting here and I just take a drink of water. I'm not necessarily thirsty, But so every single action, there doesn't have to be a reason why. This is especially true in no. This is especially true with the book Loser, because Donald is like the kind of kid, he just really doesn't get it. So sometimes he does things like when he jumps out of his seat and yells, you know, like sometimes he doesn't really have a motivation for doing it, you know. He's just excited. All right, so you can stop copying the notes. So look up here at my list. I have. All right, so this is not it doesn't have every single motivation on it. So let's just kind of go down this and make sure you understand what I mean. So religion, you guys, sometimes people do things because it's their religion, okay? Love, power, obligation. What do I mean by obligation? So you do things because you're obligated. Basically, you do things because you have to. All right? So, for example, my son, he decides to help his sister with his homework. He's not doing it out of love, trust me. All right? He's doing it out of obligation because he has to, because I'm making him. So obligation means you have to. And I will give this list to you. Fear, revenge, friendship, money, popularity, past experiences. So let's say, for example, there was a teacher here who, a long time ago, she was a phys ed teacher, and she just hated clowns. Like, when she was little, a clown freaked her out. So now, let's say, for example, her friend says, hey, you want to come to the circus with me and my family? She said no. And the reason she's doing it is not because she doesn't want to, it's just because of a past experience, because she knows she's going to encounter clowns, and she'll be all freaked out when she sees these clowns. Society expectations. What do I mean by that? And Stargirl, you really need to pay attention to this one. What does society expectations mean? Yes?
Me? I have a question. About what is frightening situation?
You're doing things out of, wait, are we on to fright?
No.
Fear?
And past experience, frightening situations.
Oh, like let's say, for example, I decide, like almost like the clown thing. That's a frightening, to her is a frightening. Like, okay, I am not going in a haunted house, and the reason I'm not going in that haunted house again is because it freaked me out so bad last time. Or let's say, for example, I am never driving in a car ever again because I had gotten in such a bad car accident that it frightened me so badly, it motivated me never to want to get in a car again. So when we talk about society expectations, what does that mean? Yes? You got it. What people expect. So society could mean your school, what people in your school expect from you. It could mean in your group of friends. So you don't have to think of society as like the whole world. It's like a group. So it's what people expect from you. Justice. Do you guys know what justice means?
Save the world.
Justice means you get, I don't want to say even, but you get what is deserved. Okay? Survival, fame, reputation, pleasure, pride. What is pride? So you do things out of pride. Shh. Yes. Jordan. So when we talk about pride, it's the satisfaction or pleasure you get from doing something good. Adventure, greed, knowledge, hate, vengeance. What is vengeance? Vengeance is different than revenge. Hold on, somebody's talking. Sorry, go ahead. Social status is what?
To like bring your like popularity up, or to make you have more friends.
Any thoughts on his? Okay, so we have a security, esteem, or your confidence, anger, peer pressure, embarrassment. This is like, if you're naive, it basically means that you don't have the knowledge or the background to fully understand something. So like if I say to my 4-year-old, hey, why don't you go jump off that, or maybe my 2-year-old, why don't you go jump off that building? Okay, because he doesn't understand when you jump off a building, you're going to get hurt. Just like some teens are naive when they text and drive. No, it's not going to happen to me, and it can really. Fitting in jealousy. All right, so now I'm going to pass this list out to you. So when we're talking about, let me show you what I mean. So remember the story that we did, the jacket, right? Okay. So when we read that story, there was one part that I'm like, all right, there was a motivation for him doing that. So remember when he got the jacket, right? And he put the jacket on, and he looked at himself in the mirror, and then he turned sideways to look at himself that way, and then he he wanted to see how he looked in the jacket for combing his hair, and then he wanted to see his profile. So some of you actually had a question, like, why is he doing that? So basically your question is a motivation question. So when you think and when you write and annotate for character's motivation, so what you're going to do is you would just put the page number where the action occurred on. So I'm going to say page 1. Now you have to remember, not every action is going to have a motivation. So our eyes should be up here. So then you're just going to give me like a quick little retell. So I'm just going to write the part when the narrator put on the jacket and looked at himself in many different positions in front of the mirror. So I have to ask myself, why is he doing this? So I can do this in a couple ways. I can use what I know. I'll wait till you're done talking. I'm going to use what I know about the character, or I can also use, like, what do I know about humans and why they do things? So I'm thinking, okay, so we were talking about why the character was doing what he was doing. Sit back there. So we were saying the part where the narrator puts on the jacket and continuously looks at himself in the mirror in different positions. So what we had said, can somebody unfreeze that for me? So when you write down the character's motivation, you should have that chart next to you, which I'll give you copies of. So I decided, like, I'm thinking what I said, the reason for his motivation was, I'm going to put, I would put the narrator, so watch up here as I write, so you know what to do, because you're going to have to do this next. So the narrator's motivation was protection. He was protecting himself from the possibility of being bullied. But I have to explain it because it doesn't really make sense, like right now. So it's like, you see, if he looked at himself in every direction, all right, in every possible way, and found out the part where he looked the best in this ugly coat, then that might prevent him from getting teased. So you see, if he looked and figured out the best way he looked in the, and I'm going to put guacamole coat because I'm using details from the text. So I'm not just using like what I know about human nature and people, but I'm also using details from the text. In the guacamole coats, he could be possibly preventing himself from getting teased about the coat. So he's protecting himself. He could possibly prevent himself from being teased. So what you're going to do today is you are going to, on your own, you're going to find 5 areas where, so this is going to take some rereading, but your purpose for rereading is different now. your purpose is to think about motivation, whereas yesterday your purpose was to find answers to your questions. So what you're going to do is you're going to find 5 parts. So find 5 parts where a character has a motivation for doing something. This does not have to be your main character. So like if you're doing loser, it doesn't have to be Donald. It could be the 4th grader. It could be his mom. Okay? If you're doing Stargirl, it doesn't have to be Stargirl. It could be any of the other kids. You have Hillary, right? You have Kevin. You have Leo. If you're doing Maniac McGee, it could be Maniac. It could be John McNabb. It could be the Pickwells. It could be Amanda Beale. Then what you're going to do is in your notebook, you're going to write the page number that the part is on. And you're going to tell me the part when. So basically you're doing like a quick little 3 or 2 sentence retell. And then you're going to tell me the motivation was. And you're going to explain why you think this is a motivation using details from the story and or explanations using your background information about the understanding of the emotions that drive human behavior. So I'm expecting 5 of those. When you get done with that, you need to go ahead and start the next reading. So these are the pages, but you're going to do it with question annotations, which we already set up in your notebook. Okay, so remember there's 3 different types of questions. They're in the text, pondering, and in my head. So as you're reading, your goal is to use the fix-it strategies to try to get the answers to your questions. Okay, are there any questions on what to do?